This is an example of an employee that gave him the opportunity to train Lady Gaga at Rise Nation. He was a dancer. And then all of a sudden I get a notice that he was going to be leaving and going with Lady Gaga on to her tour to train her. The guy didn't know how to train somebody. He goes, I'm a dancer, Jason. I know how to do this. More or less like just shit all over, the years of experience and, knowledge that I have. And of course, once Lady Gaga's people found out about it, because I trained Bradley Cooper and he's close to Lady Gaga. And I was like, I can't believe this guy thinks he's going to train her. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's a big responsibility. She fired him and he came back.
Wow, did you let him back in?
I forgave him. And I thought, wow, if he's got the balls to come back and actually confront me. He was resentful and he had a plan in mind.
Mm-hmm. There's that first betrayal. It's like, okay, I'll do something nice again because you're a good person, because you're forgiving.
Right.
You thought forgiveness meant giving him another chance. What forgiveness was you being non-reactive and you also having boundaries and respect for the other people on the team.
You're listening to The Human Upgrade with Dave Asprey.
You're listening to The Human Upgrade with Dave Asprey. Today, we're filming in beautiful Beverly Hills, site of one of the upgrade labs for many years. And this is a chance to talk in person with one of the most sought after celebrity trainers on earth. And when I say celebrity trainer, just like celebrity, we'll say nutritionist, I'm always kind of like, what's your qualifications here, dude? So I went deep before I decided to talk with Jason Walsh. Jason's trained Oscar winners. You've maybe heard of Justin Timberlake or Jake Gyllenhaal and Brie Larson and so many more. 30 years of working in the field, 20 of them in LA with studios saying, this person with this body and this background needs to look this way by this date. How are we going to do it? And so he's got a unique perspective that's from a true expert in the field. And working with celebrities means either that you're good at schmoozing, we'll figure that out, or whether you're actually the best in the field, because it's like, are you a vet or do you work on racehorses? And I look at celebrities and musicians, they're basically human racehorses in that every minute they're spending on stage or performing is really expensive, so the world's best has to work on them. So we have a lot to learn from people who are working in that field and helping celebrities reach whatever their goals are for a specific film or for a specific performance. Because that speaks to biohacking. It's the idea of changing the environment around you and inside of you so you have control of your own biology. You might have heard of Rise Nation or Rise 311, and these are both Jason's. Jason, welcome to The Human Upgrade.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I've always wondered, like when you were 12 years old, you say, Mom, I want to be a celebrity trainer. Like when did this come into your universe?
Far from
Like, how do you even get into that?
It's a great question. And I think that the best justice I can do this is to kind of give you some background into my history, where I came from, and where I think that these markers really happened in my life. Because I can sit back and think about the certain moments in my life, the crossroads, that had such an impact on me that made me into the person that I am today. I never dreamt of being an entrepreneur. I didn't even know what the word meant. I'm from a little town, Springfield, Missouri, in the Midwest.
Did you know Homer Simpson?
I'm not sure it was the same Springfield. I think that was Springfield, Illinois.
Okay, got it.
But I could be wrong.
They sound the same.
Yeah, right.
I have no idea.
I'll take it. No, I'm from the same hometown as Brad Pitt. That's where he's from.
Okay, cool.
Did
you guys hang out when you were kids?
No, but I did get to meet him and hang out with him in my late teens, which was an interesting story. I got so many stories. I know I'm going to start rambling today, so if I go off on a tangent,
I'll rein you in.
Just stop me. No, I think that I can tell you two stories that I think are very important. And it's moments where I really got a glimpse into who I am and my capabilities. And one of those happened early on. It was like first or second grade, something like that. And I was walking home from school one day, and I know this is going to sound self-righteous, but it's a good story. I was walking home from school one day, and I noticed this kid that was surrounded by these three older kids. This kid was in my class. And it's on this like far field, so it was far away from the actual schoolhouse. And I don't know. There was just, I could tell this kid was petrified. He didn't know what the hell to do. Got these 3 older kids around him. And, I didn't think about it. I reacted and I went over and I put myself between him and this, the lead bully, as you'd call him. And, the bully, he went ahead and just started swinging away. But, kids don't really know how to fight.
Sure.
It's a lot of slapping and scratching and all this kind of stuff. So I just felt it was almost, it was this moment of feeling, it was probably endorphins, but I just felt impenetrable. I felt like I could take anything, and at that moment, when the fight was done, and I didn't fight back because I didn't know how to fight, I just felt empowered. I just felt incredible from this moment because I knew, I had a decision, but it's really the actions that define who that person is. And I took action. And
did you get your ass kicked?
I guess technically, yeah.
There were 3 guys
but
on you.
You know what? No, it was the one guy was the main bully.
Oh, okay.
He's got the 2 friends
the henchmen.
pushing him on, the henchmen, right? But that moment really started to define, and it had a ripple effect through my whole life. It's something that just kind of it turned that switch on, And I gained a best friend from that. The kid that I saved, we became best friends. His name's Trevor, and I think about that time often because it's something that still impacts me to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was powerful.
It feels like a lot of guys today have never been in a fight. Like a huge number.
There's a lot of guys that need to be slapped, but that's my opinion.
You're not wrong. I've been in that situation with actually up to 8 kids around me.
Yeah.
Fortunately, being the tallest one and relatively obese, I had physics on my side, so I would sit on them.
Yeah.
But it does help. You're a big guy too. But it's funny how much bullying it affects people way later in life. I see it all the time.
It does.
People are going through 40 Years of Zen. This is my neuroscience program. And one of the guys who came through is like, I didn't realize he runs a 1,200 person company. Because, all of my success is because I was bullied. Like I'm still trying to prove myself.
Absolutely.
And he dropped that because it's not a fun way to succeed.
It serves you for a little while, right?
that anger and like, I'm good enough.
Yeah.
But it sure is painful to do that for long periods of time. So
it doesn't serve you.
I'm beyond that.
Like I want to evolve into a person that doesn't need that. And for the most part, I'm getting there. I'm 48 years old and I'm getting to the point where it's exhausting.
Oh yeah.
It's exhausting,
Are you one of those guys like you walk into a room and you're like, I know where all the bad people are. I know where all the exits are.
Yeah, you size people up. I mean, it's. I think it can serve you in that way. But it's also a lot of ego, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
I struggle with that, and we'll get into more of the training stuff.
Sure.
Part of it is you need to be physically fit if you can handle yourself. But I just did this this thing that included 4 hours of BJJ. Including full contact, full strength each day.
Great discipline.
Run by, and I'm not officially trained in that, run by a bunch of military guys in Texas, which is super cool. And it's called Sheepdog, if you guys are wondering. And the thing that got to me was some of the guys in there had never been in a fight, and they're our age, and they're rigid, and I've been in way more fights than I'd like to be, and I never threw a first punch in my life.
Right.
But what you realize really quickly is who's conditioned and who's not, right? Because they run out of energy in like 5 seconds. And then who's trained and who's not, because people who are trained don't use any energy to fight.
Right.
Which is
there's no efficiency.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking, the difference.
Yeah. And
right.
It's exhausting.
And there's like a preparedness that you need that's a physical thing.
Right.
Right. And then there's the mental thing. And it feels like a lot of people got the mental harm. And what results from that is the mental harm from childhood. If you're hypervigilant because you can't turn it off, then you have a problem. And I used to be that way. You walk into a room like, where are all the threats?
Right.
And then you go to one of these classes and they're teaching you to be hypervigilant. Right. But it's not really hyper, it's just vigilant. So there's this interesting sliding scale where like if you're always paranoid, but if you just calmly walk into a room and you assess, okay,
those are the guys you got to worry about.
Yeah.
The ones that are calm and cool.
Yeah.
The ones that aren't shouting, or making a big scene. Those are the ones that I wouldn't mess with.
When we were doing full contact, like we did 8 rounds of 3 minutes, the entire time, I'm like, okay, I can handle whatever. I'm one of the bigger guys, that helps. And then this guy was probably 8 inches shorter than me. Like, we kind of got into a stance, and he's pauses and he looks me up and down. I'm like, oh, fuck, this guy's trained. He's a trained wrestler. I mean, he took me down, landed on my face.
Yeah.
Right. I got my elbow in his neck, which was good, but still, like, he kicked my ass up and down the street because it was the calmness when he just paused and looked at me when you're like, oh man, this is gonna hurt.
Right. But that's what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is really rooted in. You know, the Gracies. And I actually took Jiu-Jitsu for 7 years.
Oh, so you're pretty well trained.
And I actually rolled with Hoist Gracie.
Wow.
Who, you know, he chose me to roll with him in front of the class on purpose because I was one of the bigger guys. I was 235 at the time, you know, big and strong. And he made an example out of me. Before I knew it, I was passed out. He had my gi wrapped around my neck, you know, and it was humbling. It's needless to say, but that's the beauty of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and how powerful it is. And now you're combining those sports with, you know, Muay Thai and boxing and wrestling, and you know, these athletes are becoming so multifaceted and very scary kind of people. And I got a chance to meet some of the jiu-jitsu guys when I was training Jake Gyllenhaal for this movie Roadhouse that's coming out. And they just have this aura, this energy about them. And I used to work with special forces. I've trained some special forces. Okay. These guys also do that kind of stuff. You know, they're very calm and they're tiny guys. You know, unsuspected.
As you age, your energy can decrease more and more over time, but it's possible to get more energy as you age instead of losing it. I'm using something that works really well to help me with sustained natural energy, and it's called MitoSynergy BioCopper 1. It's a bioavailable form of copper, and it's super effective because copper 1 is a critical component of your cell's natural source of energy production. BioCopper 1 also helps create critical proteins and enzymes your metabolism could not run without. It's clinically proven to help with mental clarity and to help your body feel good. And in some people, it even helps reduce or eliminate gray hair when it's caused by copper deficiency. Get 15% off now at mitosynergy.com/Dave.
I think the military probably just decides, like, if they're smaller, they can fit more than a helicopter, maybe.
They're efficient.
But I've never met like an operator that's super big like I am.
Right.
Or even like you are.
Yeah.
But I think that might just be you can't get in a submarine or something. I'm not sure.
Maybe some of that, but I definitely know that it's more about efficiency and the way the body, you know, physically, you know, reacts and how people can calm themselves and have those types of powers. It's incredible. Incredible to be around them, you know, like, you know, I trained athletes for years, and that was really my background in strength conditioning. And it's easy to train the type of people that have that kind of discipline, the yes sir, no sir. It's way easier than training actors who you really have to.
A little entitled?
Well, it's not even, by the way, I don't think it's that. That's not the biggest, you know, step to get over. It's really to get them to buy in, because everybody's trying to sell them something. Everybody's trying to convince them. People are trying to manipulate, take advantage.
All the time.
These guys have a sixth sense about that, though. They can read that. So I think that's one of the superpowers that I kind of developed throughout the years, you know, and I can root that into, you know, I was a bartender for years and years, and I don't know, there's a certain amount of empathy and compassion and, you know, communication when you have these types of things, and you're backed with science, and you have these tools in your tool belt, and you're able to present this thing in a way. You know, look somebody in the eye and you tell them, I'm going to get you as stronger than you've ever been, but you've got to listen to me. You've got to have that ability to read the room, to, you know, talk to these people, convince them, get them to buy in.
It's a bit of a sales process.
You could see it, you could see it as a sales process. And then I think that to me, that's where bartending for so long, and my grandmother was a bartender. She was 83 when she was bartending full time before she quit.
That's cool.
Amazing woman, right? And it's just it's a different process. It's a very, very complicated and convincing conversation that you have to have with these guys. Now, when I get to this point, 20 years in, you know, my results and what I've accomplished really speak, you know, loudly as far as my reputation goes. So sometimes that's not the problem. But early on, I've got some great stories, you know, Matt Damon and people like that I had to. It was one of the first times I've really had to convince someone that I had their best interest and I had the knowledge and I was going to, do things differently than what they were used to, because Matt had worked with, a dozen different trainers, and every single trainer he told me, he's like, look, this is what we're going to do. I got to get ready for this thing. I'm going to eat some broccoli chicken. I'm going to get on that elliptical, which is a piece of shit. And, it's worthless. And I'm going to get skinny and I'm going to look good on film. And I had to have, this conversation with him and convince him. I just said, once I put him through a screening and I realized where the deficiencies really were, throughout the body, I picked the easiest deficiency, which is his shoulder, something that had bothered him since he was in his 20s because he played baseball, through the football,
Sure.
So he had a bum shoulder. And I decided to choose that path to convince him that I'm different from everybody else that's out here. The pathology of this is going to be way different than anything he's ever experienced. And once I was able to fix that shoulder, just because there was an imbalance, it was weak, the stabilizers weren't working and so on and so forth. It's pretty easy, honestly. And, went to the house and threw a football at him and he caught it and he threw it back. I just did that just because I knew instinctually he's going to want to throw it. And then I looked at him, I was like, how's that shoulder feel? And he's like, you son of a bitch. Matt's an awesome guy. I mean, he's incredibly talented, number one, very intelligent. He's a family man. I think I learned a lot about, being a father, a good father and a family man, being around him, because I grew up with a single mother. She was 17 when she had me. We grew up in poverty, food stamps, those kinds of things. I'm not supposed to be here today. I know that.
Come a long way.
I know that. I know that society has things in place to keep people like me from excelling. But these are, this goes back to your friends that you're talking about that, are CEOs of companies. And, you either use those moments in your life that keep you down, you recognize it, and you do something about it. You decide, you have a decision to make, and you have actions to take, and that really separates. You can use that, there's, if I can tell you one more story.
Sure.
This one was more of a crossroads in my life. And this story, this is a tough one because to me, this was do or die. This was stay in Missouri and accept what society has given me, or I'm going to do something with my life. And it started, my friends and I, we went to a 24-hour steak and shake in Springfield, Missouri. And these 6 guys walk in, and they started throwing racial slurs at my friend Toby. Obviously, he's black. And Toby, being a cool cucumber, just got up and went over and diffused it. And I was amazed. I was like, how the fuck, these guys, you went up to these 6 guys and diffused the situation. It seemed to go pretty well. Yeah. Came back over, we're eating. Time goes by, these guys finish eating. And as they go outside, one of the guys kind of steps back real cocky and just says, this really horrendous racial slur. And Toby, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And he dropped his fork and he got up and he went out. And at the time we had these 2 girls with us, and it was like, I was like, I don't want to get in a fight. I want to go back to the house, exactly.
Yeah, 2 girls with priority.
Exactly. So I had other motives, but I also didn't want Toby to get his ass kicked by these 6 guys. I'm a big guy, I figured I'd walk outside and just be like, you guys go on. And I step outside, and before I knew it, I was hit blindside with this, I think it was a tire iron.
Jesus Christ.
And
it can kill you.
And it nearly killed me. But the guy hit me in the face, and of course I blacked out. And came to, and I saw Toby. I'm like, what the hell am I doing out here? Toby's out there just beating the shit out of all these guys. He flipped out when he saw what happened to me and reacted. And the other guys reacted too, but I knew that I just had to get this guy's, license plate. So that was the only thing going through my head. And I got the guy's license plate. I walked into the steak and shake, bleeding all over the place. My face, I could see I could look down with my eyes and see my cheek. It was swollen.
Oh.
And of course, went to the hospital, x-rays. My face was broken. They said you could have been killed because they came very close to hitting me in the temple. Let's cut to the next day. I get up, walk into the restroom. I look in the mirror, And I was pissed. I was so mad. You know, it's sad. I think it gets me when I talk about this. It's disappointing to see what people are capable of, you know?
Yeah.
And it's disappointing. But I use that anger to drown out any and all fear in my life. And at that moment, I decided it flicked the switch and it was on. This game on, you know? So I made my mind up that I was leaving and I was going to go to North Carolina and pursue something that I had been wanting to pursue, which was nutrition at the School of Public Health in North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So, you know, after the healing, the surgery, which, by the way, my face is pretty much all titanium steel plates from here, from the maxilla through the zygote, the orbital, all this stuff.
Whole Terminator
crushed,
thing going on.
Yeah, it was a Terminator thing. No, I don't set off the alarms when I go through the.
Does it hurt a lot still, or is it done?
There's a lot of nerve damage, so I don't really feel anything. Like when I can't feel anything when I go through here and touch. And this eye definitely like swells up more than the other one when I'm tired. Too much salt. But that moment was critical because I think that was life slapping me in the face and being like, "What are you going to do?"
Mm-hmm.
So I used the anger. I drowned out all my fears and anything that kept me from, you know, pursuing what I was capable of, things that I knew that I was capable of. I knew I was a leader. I knew I had, you know, something special inside of me. I just didn't know exactly what it was. So I moved to North Carolina. Within the first year of moving to North Carolina, my dad passes away. Now, if you remember, my mom's single mother. I didn't even know my father until I was, 9 or 10 years old. And my grandmother called me, and I was at a PJ Harvey concert in Atlanta.
Harvey,
I know. It was so
I like
good.
PJ Harvey.
God,
yeah.
she's so good. But I was there with my best friend, Derek, and I received a phone call. And my grandmother was just like, "Hey, I just want to let you know your dad's dead." And it was just such a weird moment for me. I didn't know how to process it because, you know, I was kind of, I guess, apathetic or indifferent towards my dad, but it was the first experience I've had with death, you know, so I didn't know how to process it. So, you know, my best friend, Derek, who was like my brother, I looked up to him, my older brother, and he's like, "Why don't you come with me, man? I'm going to go to Italy." And I'm like, okay, you know, like yeah. So I put school on pause. I moved to Italy. And I got cultured, you know, this kid from Missouri that didn't have any culture whatsoever. It changed everything.
That's a wake up. The world's a little bit different over there.
God, it was such a, you know, I think that, you know, humans, we are, you know, kind of our brain is rooted in, you know, fear and judgment. You know, I think we're born that way in fear and judgment. And the evolution, you know, of our brain is to become compassionate and empathetic. And that, you know, it takes the brain a lot. Something has to trigger that. And me living in Italy gave me that superpower. And I was ready. I left Italy. I was there for almost a year with Derek. He stayed because he found a girl and went to Germany. And I moved back to North Carolina full of vinegar. And, you know, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. It was awesome. You know, it's just amazing to sit back and look at these moments in your life that really, it's opportunity, it's character building, you know, and I could see it now. You know, I knew what was going on. Came back, I went back into school. I started bartending full time because I wanted to pay for school as I went. I went to school part-time. I got an internship at a strength conditioning program there with the Olympic sports, 450 athletes. Here I am, this guy, you know, like my background is just work really fucking hard and find the guys in the gym. I've been working out since I was in 7th grade because of sports. I thought I had a secret, you know, it was like, I was the guy that the coach picked out. He was like, "You're talented. Let's make you better. And here's some shitty weights behind the, you know, the curtain in the auditorium. Yeah. And when you're done with school, you should go in there and do
cement wrapped in plastic weights. Those ones.
Oh no, it was worse than that. It was like everything had rust on it, and you definitely needed your tetanus shot before you went in. But he gave me a really rough idea of what I should do. And I just, I worked on a farm when I was in Missouri, and I value hard work and I love physical labor. It's rewarding. It's not efficient, but it's rewarding. And it teaches you a lot about yourself. These are, moments that and tools that you'll use for the rest of your life. And, working on a farm, working out, realizing that it really propelled me, and what my capabilities were. I could hit the ball out of the park. I could knock the snot out of the guy. If we tackled football, it just kind of gave me that superpower. And there was just it was something that started that discipline. And discipline is amazing if it's used well. And I think that's where the discipline started for the training, and then getting into the strength conditioning program just started building that foundation. And I was a hard worker. And why did I do well? Because I empathized with the players. I got in the trenches with them. I worked out with them. I looked like the guy they wanted to look like. But athletes aren't necessarily, physically in that great of shape, but they're strong and they move really well. Football players, they have that look. They can do anything they want to do, and they have that physicality. So North Carolina happened. It was amazing. I worked under Greg Gatz, who's produced a lot of national champions, the women's soccer team, so on and so forth, baseball team. It was an incredible environment, but I knew that there was a very low glass ceiling working there. So I started searching out, people in the hierarchy of strength conditioning, strength coaches, and I found Luke Richardson, who lived in Arizona, and he invited me out. And so I quit my job as a strength conditioning coach, and I went back into volunteer work, working with Luke, because I wanted the knowledge. That level of knowledge is just. He worked with professional football players, special forces. I mean, the guy was. He was God to me.
Wow. So apprenticeship is something that matters.
People reach out to me and they're like, I want to do what you do. And I'm like, find your nearest strength college, go talk to the strength coach, get in there and get some reps. Nothing's going to teach you, school, you learn the science, you learn how to apply the science, working, at a strength conditioning program or something like that. I think it takes a long time to develop wisdom and experience. And those are things that are always going to serve you, especially if you get to the level that I'm at. I think people read and they understand that I have that. I've been, doing this for 30 years, 20 years in LA. And it's something that it's important.
It's kind of funny. I remember when I was like maybe 25, I got my first corporate job in, Silicon Valley.
Right.
It's a company called 3Com, if you guys remember that. You probably don't. But they were a big deal in the mid-90s if you had a modem. And
modem.
Totally, right? Remember those?
Amazing.
And within like 6 weeks of being there, I'm applying for a director level job.
Wow.
Right. Well, the VP was like, who do you think you are? Which I think she was more polite than that.
Right.
But I did that because I didn't know what I didn't know. I'm like, well, I'd want to be great. And it turns out I've had a pretty damn good career in Silicon Valley. But it took, a few more years, actually not that many more years, but I just needed to understand the lay of the land. I needed to have, and I did find really good mentors and people who would just give me advice.
Yeah.
And it kind of drives me nuts. Now people are like, well, you just came out of nowhere. I'm like, do you know how many great managers I worked for and all the different stuff that went into it? And it seems invisible. So when someone who's 19-year-old comes up to you and says, I want to be you, it took you 30 years to be you. And it took you it sounds like 10 years to be the you that could even function in Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I won't pretend that, my route to where I'm at today is the most efficient. I think, honestly, we live in a world where everybody wants to lie, cheat, and steal and take all the shortcuts that they can.
No kidding,
it worries me to get to, certain positions. And I've had people that I brought on to come work for me that are really taking advantage of the situation.
Happens all the time.
Happens. It's all right. They have to live with that. I took the long road.
Yeah.
I built this thing. I came to LA and I wanted to be a pioneer. I brought the phrase, train like an athlete, back in 2005. Nobody was talking about that or doing that or making those kind of applications. And it's what set me apart. I knew I had to find something that's going to set me apart. I had that knowledge and expertise of being a strength coach. So that's going to separate me. I'm going to fix people. I'm going to work on foundational things that nobody was addressing. When I came to LA, I went and looked at what other people were doing, and it was like, okay, I get it. I know where I'm at. I know what my capabilities are, what my intentions are. I put people first. My uncle bought me this book that I'll go back and read once in a while. You've heard of Yvon Chouinard, the guy, the CEO, the owner, the creator of Patagonia.
Okay, yeah, got it.
He had this book that he made for his employees, and it was more of a philosophy thing, and it kind of went crazy. And I don't know, man. Reading that book when I came out here, my uncle gave me that book, and it had a very big impact. And I knew that if I focused on integrity, I knew what I'm capable of. I know what I can do for people. The foundation for me was integrity, putting people first, letting my results and the things that I'm capable of doing speak for themselves. And that's what has propelled me. It's been an organic, chain of events that's gotten me to this point. In 2007, with the economic crisis, I've been out here for 2 years and building my reputation. But I saw an opportunity. I mean, I think everybody was scared to death because of we were in a recession. But I knew it was my opportunity to get my own space in brick and mortar. And I took this. It was a retail shop, and I had this office space above it. And I converted that into my first studio. And I wanted to create a space that was safe for the clients that I was training.
When you say safe, you mean like not being injured, or you mean like not having needles in the street in front?
Well, I was renting space out of this gym in Santa Monica, and it's an environment that's not very conducive to the type of people that I'm training, because you go in there and everybody's looking over your shoulder, or they'll come up and start talking to you.
Oh yeah.
Or the actual equipment that they have isn't really what I want to use.
So you need like a private space.
I needed a private space, and I wanted to create this environment that didn't have pictures of me with my clients and quotes on the wall. It was just a beautiful, safe space. It was private. We trained like 5 people at one time. Everybody that came through the door, I vetted. I wanted to make sure that we didn't let any of the creepy people through the doors that wanted to see people or be seen, and it was amazing. But it was risky, It was like, the economic crisis, and somehow, some way. I mean, I guess if the why is big enough, the how is going to figure that out, And that's what guided me through that, And it was pretty amazing, and it just built. It was an organic thing, and
Wow.
And
so, how big did it get?
I was always on projects, I was always away. My job, has really taken me to every single continent in this world besides Antarctica. I've been everywhere doing these projects, which is good and bad. I mean, it's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of hard work. I lost a relationship with someone that I really cared about because I wasn't able to give them what they wanted. I made a lot of mistakes, but all of them with good intentions. I mean well. I want to do great work, and I want to inspire people. I have a gift, a passion. That's how I see it.
So you had that one location, and is it still open? Like, what happened?
Well, the rents escalate, and it was
Crazy.
it's in LA. It's insane. And don't get me started on landlords, because I'm not very.
Wow. I shut down the restaurant I had here for eight years recently. So if not the first, one of the first places that was all grass fed and everything. And now you can buy grass fed everywhere.
Yeah.
But it was like rents keep going up, and LA is not the place it once was.
It isn't. It really isn't. It's sad. But no, I moved to another space down the road. beautiful space. It's 4,000 square feet. Before I had 2,800 square feet.
Yeah.
It was cute. It was just, it worked. It was great. But I definitely grew out of it. And the landlord and I didn't really see eye to eye. So I figured it was time to move on. And I've been in this new space for a while. But during that time, I really wasn't very fond of group training or boutique fitness. And I don't know. I see things differently. I think this is where the entrepreneurial mindset started to really develop, because I had cut my teeth on opening my first studio, get a little cocky, and now you think you can do anything. And I decided to open this, it was a passion project, and it was called Rise Nation. And it was my attempt at making something that I thought was far superior in the world where group training to me is just like low-hanging fruit. It's just not good. But I understand there was something about it that is really appealing to people.
So group training, like a bunch of people in a room on spin bikes, or
right, the really dangerous stuff where one person's in a room telling 60 people to do burpees and get on a treadmill and sprint their ass off. But what the pros of that is that there is community, which is powerful. It's appealing to people. And you get to reach a lot more people than what I do, So if you could put something really great, I knew if I can come up with something that I thought was incredibly safe and effective, then I'm going to do it. Nobody told me the first rule of owning a business, which is don't use your own money. But I decided to use my own money because I didn't know any different. I don't have a background in business, by the way.
I do. I use my own money because I believe in what I'm doing. And,
right.
And I use other people's money too.
Yeah,
because I don't have enough money.
Exactly.
But, there's that.
But I started this studio. I had a horrible contractor, didn't do the work, put one person on the job. So I was down there. I was cutting flooring. I wanted to get this place up and going. And I came up with the concept on a plane ride out to New York. I was sitting on the plane and, kind of putting pressure on myself to come up with something that I thought was going to be, fantastic. And man, when you get the, brain moving on something that you're very passionate about, and you get to be creative, it's a lot of fun. And that's the fun part. The hard part comes after you built it, and then you're like, oh, how do I get people, how am I going to get people in here? But the idea came to me on a plane, and the climber has, it's the cross crawl motion. It's an innate primitive movement. I knew that you couldn't get hurt on it, but it was really, really hard.
It's also good for your brain.
By the way, that's one of the things. It's actually the only piece of equipment that works both hemispheres of the brain, right? The crawling motion is something that, they rehab people that are paraplegics, and they start to get them back. They learn how to crawl.
I had to relearn how to crawl as an adult. So I learned how to read when I was 18 months. I just read when I was a kid. I didn't move very much. So I had all kinds of weird movement stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does.
So like my cross crawl was all screwed. Probably still is, but
right.
It's better
they tell
than it was. But,
parents to let the kids crawl until it's developmental. But having that knowledge and understanding, I was like, wow, we're gonna center it all on this, this crawling, climbing motion. But it was really, really hard. It's not something, in my mind, I knew that, it had to be an hour long. And I started questioning that. And I got on the climber and I started doing these tempos to music because I love music. I'm classically trained, and I grew up with music. And it's something that has always been a part of my life. And I appreciate it and love it. But I came up with this tempo training when, with music on the climber. And then, the creative side started going, what else can we do? How can we make this different? And 30 minutes really kind of hit home. You don't need to train, condition for an hour. I wouldn't put anybody through an hour long,
it's miserable.
It doesn't make any sense.
And it doesn't work.
Exactly.
Like all the data I have is like 5 minutes, 3 times a week is enough. I mean, that's what we're doing at Upgrade Labs, right?
Right. Yeah. So this, the climber that's nearly impossible. We used to torture athletes on it. I figured out a way. I cracked the code on this thing, and it was fucking fun. you got on there with amazing music with these beats. And if you put these different types of songs in back to back, and they have different tempos and you do different moves on it, the workout takes care of itself because you're kind of like dancing and you're getting lost in the music. It's a lot of fun. And then, I love live music, and I was at a 9 Inch Nails concert, and
I've seen them live once.
They're so good.
Yeah.
They're so good live.
Reznor can bring it.
He's the man, and it impacted me. I was like, wow, I'm like jumping around. I'm getting a workout.
That's a community fitness style.
You know what I'm saying? So but the environment. So I really kind of pushed myself, and we were the first to really implement lighting with the music. It's kind of like an EQ with the music, but it was distracting, so that you don't have to, focus on how horrible the class was.
Right.
So this whole thing came together, and it was just a lot of fun. And at a certain point, it sparked interest with Mark Cuban. He reached out, and we had a lot of people that wanted to buy it. And man, I wish I would have sold it when I had the chance.
A lot of us have said that before.
It's like, LeBron James was going. We trained Lady Gaga there. It was like, this thing was hot, and this was pre-COVID. So Mark Cuban came on, and I was, I was flabbergasted that I couldn't believe that this guy was going to take interest in Rise Nation. So I flew down to Dallas, and I had to pitch all this stuff to him and this board. It's just me. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was passionate about it. I knew everything there is to know about it. Corrected them, told them what was up. He liked it enough that he invested, and COVID happened and just devastated the group training. A lot of people went out of business. I just recently paid off the landlords for different locations that, background. I can't believe nobody's talking about small businesses and, what landlords were able to do on a technicality and just ruin us.
You're in a journey to live longer and way better, right? What if there was one system that makes everything else in your body work better? Well, there is, and it's your vascular system. It's the intricate network inside of you that makes sure nutrients, oxygen, and hormones reach every corner of your body. Your vascular system influences everything from your brain all the way down to your toes. When you don't have a functioning vascular system, it's tough to make anything else work better. That's why I am so obsessed with protecting my vascular system. One of the best ways to do that is to support your endothelial glycocalyx and provide your body with nitric oxide support. 7 years ago, I started taking Arterosil, and it's my go-to for protecting my glycocalyx support. And I recently came across a new product from the same company called Vasconox. Vasconox provides nitric oxide support for up to 24 hours, as shown by an open-label published study. This is something that I definitely feel. Together, Arterosil and Vasconox are an amazing combination to make your vascular system last way longer than you do. Head on over to calroy.com/Dave to get a discount.
The U.S. government has been at war with small businesses and the middle class for a long time.
I didn't know this.
That was a major win for them, COVID. They shut down so much of the middle class is now poor, and a lot of small entrepreneurs just got taken. It hurt all of us.
Nobody was looking out for us. Nobody was helping us. We didn't have PPP because everybody is, independent contractor. And, so we didn't receive any of the funds, and these landlords there was no compassion. There was no empathy whatsoever from these landlords. And on a technicality, they came after us. And, it's ruined Rise Nation. It's really, really impacted us.
Do you still have it? Are you going to shut it down?
Look, we had, before COVID, we were expanding, and Mark Cuban was excited, and he was ready to invest in our expansion. And we had, LA, Miami, Dallas, Australia, Melbourne, Australia. We went into the Philippines and Manila, and we went into Denver. And we were starting this expansion, and we started a second space in Plano, Texas, and then COVID hit. And we had to shut everything down because we also realized after COVID that the game is different. And, what we needed was smaller studios that were more efficient. And, we're kind of in a waiting, kind of in limbo, whether or not to move forward on that or not, which is sad. It's 10 years. It's survived a lot. It was an amazing venture for me. I'm proud of it. But sometimes you have to know when the writing's on the wall. I don't have these, that kind of structure. I have really, really smart, good people around me that are looking out for me, who I talk to, which is really nice to have. I never had that before. I was just dumb and
got to have the right
ambitious.
advisors, man.
Yeah,
It's kind of like if you have one of these, celebrities, like, I don't need a trainer. Like, maybe you do.
Right.
And same thing, you got to have your people. But
right.
the problem that I think you're facing here is one that they don't talk about a lot in entrepreneur spaces and all. You mentioned with celebrities, like, they're surrounded by people who want something from them.
Always.
Right? Always, right? So they
take advantage.
Well, they get a little bit paranoid because they've all been taken advantage of, right? And then, so you only can be friends with your really old friends who still are suspect, or you can be friends with other celebrities because they're already famous and rich, so at least they don't need that from you. Right? So it's crazy
toxic.
making.
It's a weird environment.
I haven't worked with as many as you, but plenty. And entrepreneurs have the same thing, even if you're a relatively small entrepreneur. But it's wealth managers. It's people providing services for entrepreneurs. And, even a lot of investors, venture investors, right? They'll come in and they'll do the same thing. And so there's that same level of like predatory energy, like, what's in it for me, that goes towards, a young, hot founder.
Yeah.
Even though I guess neither one of us is young, but we're still hot founders. Anyway. And so I've noticed that over my career, and it's a little disconcerting because they don't really warn you about it.
Disconcerting is disheartening. I have been taken advantage of so many times. I understand why people are so upset, and there's from the smallest to the largest. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of lying in the media. So people have a really hard time understanding what is right, what is true. I've been taken advantage of. The first person that I had that was managing my money took total advantage of me, and a 70-some-year-old lady, and I had total trust and blindness. It was just blind trust, blind faith. And she took full advantage and didn't do her job and nearly ruined me. And then after that, I had a lawyer who was the guy. And these guys take an oath. They're supposed to do the right thing and work for you. And he saw an opportunity because Mark Cuban came on, and Mark Cuban was like, "Look, I'm going to give you this amount of money to pay for your lawyer. I'm going to have my lawyers who are on retainer do all the heavy lifting. They'll redline it. No big deal. This should be easy." So all is said and done, pay the guy the money that Mark Cuban allotted for him. And then I get a bill for $60,000 from him. I'm like, what the fuck? What is this? And he's like, oh, these are for overages. And I was like, over for what? Mark's people did all. And this is a practice that he does. I found out because someone that left his practice because of the amoral crap that's going on, somehow the word got to him, and he told me that this is his business practice that he does. He waits a couple of years, he sends you a notice. And most people, what do? They settle because that's what your lawyers are telling you have to do, because it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah. You pick a fight with me and on principle alone. And so I'm still in a legal battle. I'm going to court in March to fight this guy.
Yeah. I used to settle. And I'll tell you this. If you do that, it sucks your soul. And
exactly.
I'm perfectly happy to absolutely, when someone is taking advantage of the legal system to screw me, it's like, okay, I'm all in.
Yeah.
Like, one of us is going to walk away, and I know I'm right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what it felt like to me? It felt like that first moment, that first story I told you about the bully.
It's abusive bullying from all these just stupid lawsuits.
I'm not going to put up with it.
So ultimately, this is a hard thing for entrepreneurs because we want to focus on our business. And you actually want to focus on making the world a better place. And you get a predator, like, just go away.
Yeah.
But I've just changed my tune towards that. I'm like, all right, I'm willing to sell everything I have and pay my attorneys. And, at the end of the day, if you're still there after I've spent everything I have fighting you, then we're going to have to talk about it in a different way.
Right.
But the bottom line is, I'm not a victim. And
I didn't want to be a victim.
Yeah.
And I started feeling that weird, like, victim mentality. I was like, No. It's not because of that, but I also did not want that feeling of being a victim.
I've had people embezzle money multiple times. I've had, huge betrayals. Things people would never imagine.
Perfect word.
Yeah. And so this is the painful part of being an entrepreneur that you don't talk about. I run a group with Vishen Lakhiani, the guy who runs Mind Valley, and Naveen Jain. That's called the Apollo Group. It's like $100,000 mastermind. We have a small group of people. We get together regularly, travel places, and like the three of us are mentoring them mentoring our group on, the stuff that they don't tell you about growing and scaling, hitting really big levels. And the stuff you hear, man, every successful entrepreneur has these things, but we don't usually talk about it because it kind of feels like, you're a victim and you don't want to talk about it. And there's always some like shame, like how could I made that decision and all.
Right. It's not very motivating either.
No, reality is, we're all doing our best. And at the time it looks like a good decision.
Yeah.
But I can think of at least 2 decisions I've made, each of which cost me $100 million that I don't have now. It's not that I had $100 million, I lost it, but there was very clear.
Bad, but not that bad.
Oh yeah. Twice.
Right.
Yeah. Right. One time it's like that board seat, probably should have made a different choice, or another time, that one executive I hired should have made a different call. The first time I knew I should have fired that person, I should have fired him, and I didn't. And look at the damage they wrought.
But let me ask you this. Did you see the good, the windows that opened, the good that came from this? Or was it, can you use this? Is it important? Are there lessons to be learned? I'm trying to do that for myself.
Oh man, you want to do that right now? Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. This is more what I do in my neuroscience thing. So this is called 40 Years of Zen.
Yeah.
And we've had about 1,500 celebrities.
Yeah.
It's called celebrity brain training, right? But we make hardware and software that goes on your brain. And what happens when there's something bullying, whether it's, bullying from an attorney who's, just making stupid claims because they know that they're going to get something, or whether it's going back to 7th grade, doesn't really matter. These are traumatic. And, trauma is a word I used to respond to. I'm like, don't be stupid. Like, I'm not bleeding. It wasn't a trauma, but you can wound someone spiritually or emotionally, and it's actually an injury, and it needs to heal. But we don't talk about that. We don't see it as an injury, right? You date a narcissist or work for one, and like they will harm your soul, right? And they're not even aware that they're doing it half the time. Sociopaths are aware, but narcissists aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of those out here.
God, no kidding right there. They flock to it. So you're in this situation, and you now can do what you did when you were younger. You're like, all right, I'm going to use the anger as a spark to change. The problem is that most people use anger as a fuel source, not a spark, right? So if you use anger as fuel, it'll burn you up. But if you use it as a spark, it'll create change.
Right.
So then after you've got the motivation, the surge of cortisol, adrenaline, and like that, like, I will not let this happen again.
Right.
Well, then you have to go to, this is my most recent book I wrote about. It's called The Reset Mode, and it's the core of what we're doing in 40 Years of Zen. It's forgiveness. So what you do.
Oh, that's a good one. I need to learn this because
it's hard, man.
I don't want it anymore. I know that it doesn't serve me. I know that this is really...
It's the feeling.
Yeah, but there's a couple people though that I'm just like, I can drop all these things, but these 2 things really, really, pissed me off, really hurt me because they took advantage.
And they hurt you every day. And it's the betrayals that hurt the most.
Betrayal, man.
Like, it's someone you trust, you let them into your inner circle, and then you're like, did you really do that?
Yeah.
And I had one...
It's the worst.
I had one employee. I looked at her and I said, she had told me we were going to lose a couple $1 million. We lost more than $20 million. And it was a total surprise. And I'm like, did you just burn through all of my venture funding?
Wow.
Like in 1 year and every week tell me we weren't doing it? And that was just shocking. But the big thing was it wasn't my fault because I'm a good person.
Well, nobody wants to take accountability.
Yeah. And then it was like...
I don't even know what that word means.
Yeah. And at the very end, when I was like, okay, this job is over, to hear, you should give me more stock options.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like, and the answer was so disturbing because it wasn't the answer of a healthy person. And I just was, okay, it's on me. I let this happen.
Right.
I didn't have tight enough controls. I had too much trust, whatever. Like it is on you, and it's on you too, right? You let these guys in. So what you do, this forgiveness thing, isn't to say what they did was all right. It's actually an energetic shift in your brain and in your heart at the same time.
Right.
That's what we teach with the electrodes on your head. But what you got to do is you got to forgive the other person, and process is in the book. It's easy enough to do, but it's actually not that easy for this. Sometimes you need coaching. And then you turn around and you forgive yourself. And forgiveness, it's just turning off the reactivity to it. It's a thing you do in your heart. There's a specific sensation to it. And when that happens, you can talk about it. You can look the person in the eye, and there's no energy at all in the body.
Yeah.
It's just something. Same thing,
powerful.
Like the guy who whacked you in the head, same thing there. Like you got another one there. I could see that.
Yeah.
So when you do that, it's weird. It's like your body is processing all this. It's always looking for the next threat.
Yeah.
It stops doing that.
Yeah.
So then you can be at peace with it, right? And then you can move on, and it's just lighter, and everything in life feels easier.
Yeah.
So
I want it.
Well, if you want to come up to 40 years of Zen, I know a guy.
Yeah.
But the other thing you could try, EMDR. You ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
You can do EMDR for business trauma. There's no reason you can't.
Okay.
Right. So that might be a way to just take the edge off.
Yeah.
But yeah, the amount of betrayal, even from family, that I've experienced as I became more successful, it's pretty shocking.
Yeah.
And I could walk around wounded with that, or I could walk around with wisdom from that.
You see a lot. I don't have the family scars that most people do. Most people I know have some kind of trauma from their childhood. Girl I date, for example, I don't know. Things like an employee. This is an example of an employee that I put in. Gave him the opportunity to train Lady Gaga at Rise Nation. He was a dancer, and at the time, good kid, mentored him. He became a very good trainer, or a very good instructor, I should say, not a trainer. And then all of a sudden, I get a notice that he was going to be leaving and going with Lady Gaga on to her tour to train her. The guy didn't know how to train somebody, but he lied to her and told her that he was a trainer. And so when I spoke to him, I was like, when did this happen? Because, as far as I know, you had a dance background. He goes, I'm a dancer, Jason. I know how to do this. Like more or less like just shit all over, the years of experience and, knowledge that I have. And thinks that he can take on this mega, very like, expensive and wealthy and a huge project with Lady Gaga. And I'm just like, why? Who does this? And of course, once Lady Gaga's people found out about it, because Bradley Cooper, I trained Bradley Cooper and he's close to Lady Gaga. And I was like, I can't believe this guy thinks he's a good trainer. He doesn't know what he's doing, And it's a big responsibility. Doesn't see it. He just wants that. He wants to take advantage.
Just celebrity, yeah.
And she fired him, and he came back and begged me, and here I am thinking, I'm going to forgive this guy.
Wow, did you let him back in?
I forgave him, and I thought, wow, if he's got the balls to come back and actually confront me.
He fucked you twice as hard the next time, didn't he?
He fucked me twice as hard the next time because he was resentful, and he had a plan in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so, once he found out I was coming to the studio to fire him, he just didn't show up. He had a room full of people. He just left them there. He didn't even it was horrible. It was just shitty. What a shitty fucking person, it just sucks. I mean, he's got his motives, but then he went and worked for the company that I actually put on the map, which is, VersaClimber. And and he gave them my trade secret. Just this whole thing,
I have a similar situation with an employee, not at Bulletproof, another one.
Yeah.
I took this person under my wing. They lied straight to my face, and then let the person go and to this day, she's out there saying she did all sorts of work for me she never did, using my name, and then saying bad things about me while using my name.
Right.
And I'm like, this is so bizarre because, gave you a shot and, the accountability is not there. The mistake that you made there, because you asked me to help out on this.
I thought it was forgiving.
So it's that you don't understand what forgiveness is. And this is something I really have had to work on. This is at the core of why I do that part of my business. Forgiveness isn't ever speaking to the other person again. Forgiveness isn't ever telling them you forgive them, right? And it's not condoning their action. It's just changing your energetics so that it doesn't hurt anymore. So you don't hold the grudge.
Right.
Right. So what you learn over time, and this is why I do the mentorship thing with the Apollo group too, is that if I had the right mentorship, or maybe if I had the humility to listen to the mentors I did have, then I would have known that for this type of person, the only thing to do is sever ties and no communication. There is no upside to trying to fix a narcissist, trying to repair it, because their whole operating system is to create an emotional trigger in you. They don't care if you're happy or sad. They just want to be in control of you. So they'll do something, and because you're a good person, you're going to say, well, hey, let me do something that helps you. And you expect them to help you back. And then when they screw you, then you help them again to show, because it must be a mistake. So, because that like healthy, normal people, you help them, they help you. And like, that's what builds society. Well,
so we thought.
So what happened here, it was predictable. Because there's that first betrayal. It's like, okay, I'll do something nice again because you're a good person, because you're forgiving.
Right.
You thought forgiveness meant giving them another chance. What forgiveness was you being non-reactive and you also having boundaries and respect for the other people on the team. So when I see that situation in the people I'm mentoring or in my own companies. Right. No, I'm sorry, you're out. And it's different than someone who makes a mistake. It's someone who betrays you. You don't get a second chance.
Right.
Right.
That's a very important distinction. Mistakes versus betrayal.
Yeah.
Because it's premeditated.
Oh yeah.
That's you're dealing with someone who's got more of a psychological issue than
the premeditated stuff. And if
mistakes
you ever
are going to happen all the time.
If you ever get in a legal situation, you see the level of premeditation. I mentioned a family member. I had a family member absolutely premeditate to steal one of my business out from underneath me. And after we did all the discovery and we saw all the stuff, I'm like, holy shit, I thought you could trust family. And the bottom line is, no, every person's a person. Doesn't matter if they're family.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. God, it's nice to hear. I mean, tough, but it's nice to hear that I'm not, alone, because I don't, I put my head down. I don't talk a lot anymore, like the media, they have, a story that they want. And a lot of times when you talk to them, which I used to think it was really important to do these things. And now I don't as much anymore, but they control the narrative, and they're going to put what they want no matter what. They chop it and they edit it into these things. And it's just so disappointing. So I'm like, just decided to start removing myself from, I don't want to educate people. I don't want to put videos out there. I don't want to do all these things. I just want to do my work on my projects. And then, Nation was a great addition and kept me very busy. It definitely educated me in a lot of ways, brought a lot of really bad people to the surface, to be completely honest. And I learned a lot from that, and, I just started another company, Rise 311. I recognized that it was built out of necessity, actually, because my clients couldn't digest whey protein or whey protein isolate, the gold standard. Been taking protein since the 80s, so I know all about it. And so I reached out to a friend of mine that understands sourcing and the way of putting elements together to create really great products. And he's ethical and he's a good person. And so I talked to him and another friend of his, and we had this idea to create a plant-based protein that had all of the benefits of whey, which didn't exist at the time. It still doesn't. I mean, now it does. But that was the motivation. It was like, if there's nothing out there for you and you need something, and create it. That was Yvonne was the guy who kind of sparked that, because he created gear for climbing out of necessity and created a whole empire on it.
Well, I mean, Bulletproof Coffee, back when I ran that company, when I started it, I need my brain to work. And
Right.
I'm very happy with Danger Coffee now, which is my new coffee company. But same thing, you evolve and you grow. And so what you needed there was some good protein. And so I'm still skeptical that plant-based is going to be the equivalent of whey, but I'm willing to be proven wrong.
I'll make sure that I bring some to you, and I'll let you try it, and I'll talk about the science behind it.
Good deal. I'm up for the conversation.
Because I was the same way. I'm like, because plant-based, all the protein gets bound up in the fiber,
Yeah, and all the other shit that's in plants that you don't want to put in your body on a regular basis.
Exactly.
Or at least not in large amounts.
I look forward to it.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
But you said something in there that was interesting. You talked about kind of feeling lonely, and what's creeping up on you is bitterness.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you take a certain number of hits, even if you have an open heart and you're looking to be of service and all that stuff, you're like, man, it's not worth it.
It only takes so much.
Yeah. And that's why you have communities of entrepreneurs who work together. Most people don't hear about that kind of stuff, but it's a loneliness because you don't know who to trust, and then you take some hits that are pretty severe, and then if you can master that forgiveness thing, then you can still walk around at peace. And otherwise, it builds up and it builds up and it builds up, and you get kind of tighter and tighter, and you're like, I just want to do this, but why do people keep screwing with it?
I know.
And yeah,
you're hitting the nail on the head with me.
I've had to do
who
all this
I
work
am
myself.
at this point. I recognize it, which I think is part of the half the battle. I recognize it. I'm getting older, and I want joy in my life. And I've been working so hard up until this point. I've left no room for that.
Yeah,
and I've created a lot of bitterness and mistrust. I don't trust anybody.
Yep, you got to bring trust back in.
Yeah,
and this will help you too. You ever see that interview with the founder of NVIDIA? You know what NVIDIA is, right? Largest graphics card chip maker, like $100 billion company or something. This guy started it from scratch. They used to make video game cards, when we were in our 20s. And someone asked him, what advice would you give yourself when you were 19 when you started the company? And he thought about it, and he said, don't do it. Right?
I thought that.
Yeah, build a $100 billion company.
Be a hell of a lot easier to work for somebody else and do the 9-to-5 thing. And
it is a lot easier to work for someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Problem is I've got a lot of opinions. I'm opinionated, and I don't want to work for anybody else.
Yeah, I'm not meant to work for other people either.
No.
So you're in a situation a lot of people get to.
Yeah.
And people do all kinds of stuff, vision quests and all these things, but I find that being in a community of people who've also been there before is one of the most powerful things. So you got your recipe. EMDR might help on some of this stuff. Check out 40 Years Zen, and I'm not trying to sell you on this stuff.
Listen.
But that real specific, you got to pull the barbs out, basically.
Yeah.
So that you can move freely. Right.
It's nice speaking to somebody that knows exactly what I'm going through and what I've been through.
Yeah.
It's probably not even an inkling of what you've had.
It's the same level of emotional intensity. I can pick that up on you. It's not like the number of dollars changes the level of emotional intensity. It's the same pain.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I've had several just stuff that if people who are fans of the show, if you guys knew all this shit that I've dealt with in the last 5 years, it would not even compute, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying that to say, look at me, I'm bragging or I'm suffering or whatever, but just that thing when I started Bulletproof, it was Bulletproof, the state of high performance. But what was behind it was resilience, right? And there's biological resilience, and there's emotional resilience, and there's spiritual resilience. So I put a lot of resources into building resilience, and I've dealt with a lot of stuff, which has probably made me better at resilience. But
I teach physical resilience.
Yeah.
And that's my goal with my clients is to turn them on, let them understand what true strength is.
Yeah.
I think everything in the fitness industry is pretty much fluff. It's, bubble gum and, cotton candy kind of crap. It's an industry that really thrives on the gullibility of the public. And that sucks, I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
But so what I do want to be a part of is inspiring people and turning them on to what I think is the hierarchy and the strength and the resiliency and what it gives them. It's empowering, and it's amazing to see that switch triggered.
Mhm.
You know, I did that with Brie Larson. She couldn't even open a bottle of water. And then by the end of it, she was pound for pound. Allison Brie, these girls, it's fun training these girls because they don't think that they're capable. They think they're capable of so much. And then you take them beyond that.
That's cool.
And it's just awesome. It's like, that's what keeps me going. Is I love those moments.
The way you were there, you're like, it's just awesome.
It's just awesome.
You're supposed to be that way all the time.
I know.
And it's the betrayals that take that away.
Yeah.
So you got to remove the power to do that.
Yeah.
It'll take you
I look forward to it,
between a week and 3 months now that you know the problem there.
Yeah.
And it's something you're probably not going to do by yourself. Like there's things where you need a buddy, you need a therapist, you need help with that. It's really hard to come to those things.
Right.
And it doesn't take psychedelics.
I look forward to it. It doesn't take psychedelics?
No, you don't have to do it. Some people choose that path, but I'm not opposed to it. I like psychedelics.
I think it was fantastic. I did them at concerts and woof, man.
And maybe that's a way to work on this.
Mushrooms are pretty incredible.
They are, but I don't think mushrooms get to this kind of stuff. It needs a structured approach.
I've been there before.
Yeah.
It masks.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, it's been a pleasure to chat with you.
Great, man. I feel like I have somebody in my corner at this point, and I really appreciate the advice, and I'll take that to heart and work on that. Maybe next time I'm on your podcast, we'll come back and talk about my experience through 40 years.
That's a good plan. We'll do that, and we'll talk about your new protein, and I can drink it and make faces.
I can't wait. I'm going to convince you. I promise. Man, thank you so much.
Thanks,
brother. Appreciate it.
You're listening to The Human Upgrade with Dave Asprey.